Good evening, my friends, and welcome back as we continue our trek through The Count of Monte Cristo. Of course, the fantastic novel by Alexander Dumas. This is what we're going to call Part 4. As you can see, I have divided The Count of Monte Cristo into. Let me check my notes here. See, I wrote in the book. I wrote in the book because it's my book and I can do that if I want. But we've got this is a 12-part novel according to me. And I think it was broken up into, different sections in other ways. And of course it was serialized when it came out. But anyway, I did it this way because it just kind of gives little sections, and these are the sections I feel or makes the most sense, kind of to talk about, right? So anyway, we have, again, part 4. And this is when the book takes a huge turn. First off, we are getting a big time skip here. We're getting a 9-year time jump. So when last we left Edmond Dantes, who was not the Count yet, he was in the process of rewarding those who, did not, betray him or kind of held strong, So we had that wonderful scene where he was able to save Morel and company at the end of part 3. So now, something completely different. We're going 9 years later. We are changing the locale, not initially, but we're changing the locale to, as you can see from the background here, Rome. So they're going to Rome for the carnival, right? But first, we have a brief stop on the island of Monte Cristo. I don't think that's the island. But anyway, and initially reading this, I think maybe the first time I was thrown by this. I was like, what? This is so different from who are these characters? What is this? What is going on here? But you can start to see the Count's, his web. The web has been weaved, and you're starting to see it all kind of come together. So, where does part 4 start? It starts with a new character, Baron Franz d'Epinay. D'Epinay. I'm probably saying that wrong. Anyway, we'll just refer to him as Franz to avoid the mispronouncing of the French last names too much. But Franz is a young man who is a good friend to Albert Morcerf, all right? And Franz is taken to doing some hunting before he goes and he meets up with his friend Albert. Let me scoot up a little bit there. Before he meets up with his friend Albert for the carnival in Rome, right? So he sets out to do some hunting there in the Mediterranean, and he hires a group of a boat, basically hires a boat to take him around to different hunting places. And then this boat recommends to him, Your Excellency, I heard there's some good goat hunting on the island of Monte Cristo. Why don't you go check it out? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, right? So, right from the bat, this very first scene, you can see the Count's influence, right? You don't know it right away, but you can feel it, right? So anyway, he agrees, and they go to this island, and when they get close, they see that the island is already occupied, and it could possibly be by bandits who use this as a kind of port of call, and smugglers and that kind of thing to put off their goods and meet up with other ships, right? So the leader of the crew of the boat goes ashore and does indeed find out that they're bandits, but His Excellency is welcome to join them and to camp and to hunt on the island, right? So they go ashore. They can see that the bandits are cooking up a nice meal over there. They prepare to cook up their meal. When they are invited, or rather Franz is invited by the bandits' chief to instead come and dine with him in his home that he's got there on the island, right? So that's what he's going to do. And that's where we can start up with the illustrations. Yes. So these are from the 1888 copy that's got over 500 illustrations, which I just learned about, and I'm kind of, basically watching and going along with you. So here we are. We see Franz. He's being blindfolded as he's going to be led to the home, the lair of the chief of the island there, right? What, my keybind? Go. Perfect. And here we meet Sinbad the Sailor, the pseudonym that the Count is going under at this time. basically, when the blindfold is taken off, Franz finds himself in this elaborately kind of um, curtained and carpeted area. Like, so, like the carpeting is so thick, his like feet are squishing into it. Curtains and brocades, I think I'm using that word correctly, hanging about everywhere. Just a very beautiful and well done up place. And he's introduced there to Sinbad the Sailor. And then they both agree to kind of, I mean, he knows that it's obviously a pseudonym, and they both agree to go by pseudonyms for this trip. And he calls himself Aladdin, since he seemed to have found himself in like a wondrous place, right? So, okay, so, oh man, and this is just like the very first bit. This is just the very first bit. Franz is a very cool character. I do, and I like him very much. I almost kind of see him as, is almost kind of maybe like the reader almost. Because he, more than anyone else, is able to kind of see through and into the Count, I think. Almost from a, like a fourth wall kind of perspective, maybe I'm feeling. So, anyway, this is all here just in the first chapter, which is crazy. So, he has a fantastic meal there with Sinbad, and he's treated to wonderful things and basically fantastic stories and that kind of stuff. And in the end, when the kind of the dinner's winding down and everything, the Count starts talking to him about his this treatment that he has in this pills, and he shows him this awesome pill box, this carved out of emeralds, and he gives him one of these pills, which is made up of hashish and like something else, but basically it gives Franz like a major trip, right? Let me see. Do we get any of that here? Oh, hold on. No, we don't. Anyway, that is Ali, his mute servant that he basically saved from, I think, Turkey or something like that. And he becomes an interesting character throughout. And here you can see his deep love for the Count of Monte Cristo. I think this is when he's kind of showing Franz that, like, he's basically like a dog to me. I could do whatever I want him, and he's kind of showing that. So again, you're meeting a whole different character. So when you last left Edmond Dantes, right, he was rewarding his friends that had helped him, and doing all these great things. 9 years later, here he has come back. He's, dressed up differently. He's got a slave, It's a kind of a different story, but still, like, you're seeing this whole different side, and it's kind of like it's a bit off-putting, which is kind of like one of the big themes of this book is like having you down here and then bringing you up here and then having you up here and then putting you over here and then maybe you're going all the way over there. It's one of the things I really like about this. So anyway, Franz is tripping out. He's taking his hashish ball, and he's actually, you see, look at it, he's got a big old pipe that he's been smoking as well. And in the dream, basically, he is greeted by these three women, and it's kind of left undecided as to whether it was part of the dream or did the Count really send these three ladies in there for Franz. Unknown. But anyway, he falls asleep, and upon waking, I'm not sure what the next picture is. That's a very good. This is the Count in his Sinbad the Sailor attire, and I want to say that Dumas does such a wonderful job of describing clothes, describing rooms, describing decorations, and I love that the people that did these illustrations obviously took that to heart. Some of these are so direct from the page, that it's crazy. So anyway, when Franz wakes up, Sinbad the Sailor and everything is gone. He basically wakes up in a cave on a pile of hay. I keep hitting the wrong button. We're not getting to that yet. That's Luigi Vampa. Anyway, he wakes up on a pile of hay. The Count is gone. He goes out and he finds his crew out there, and he asks, and they're like, yep, the Count left early in the morning, and if you take your spyglass, you can see him. Not the Count, this is Sinbad, sorry. So he takes his spyglass, and he peers out, and he sees the Count way off in the distance on the horizon, also, peering and waving back at him. And then he fires a cannon off for him. And then that's the last we see of Sinbad the Sailor, I guess, kind of in the flesh, right? Which is a very cool little scene, and it's again, it is so kind of telling of how in depth this plan was, right? Shoot, I'm 9 minutes in, 10 minutes in, and I just got over the first chapter. I'm going to have to speed it up a little bit. Anyway, Rome. Okay, so now we're in Rome. We get to meet Albert, and they have a room booked at Signor Pastrini's inn. And one of the things that I will always love about this part of the book is that it makes me want to go and look at old maps, right? So there's so much detail in Dumas's writing of geography, street names, things like that. I had to go back and look. So here I am looking at a map of 1850s Rome so that I can see the exact course that, they recommended that they go. So we'll get to that. We're getting ahead of ourselves. But now, again, very strange. You're coming from kind of a direct narrative of Edmond Dantes' his adventure. Now you meet Franz. You meet this Sinbad the Sailor, this new character for him. And then, now you're getting a complete story. Basically a tale within a tale. So the innkeeper, Signor Pastrini, he is warning the young men there about Roman bandits, and they don't believe in Roman bandits. They don't think it's really a thing. So he tells them the story of Luigi Vampa. So here you have a story within a story. Very cool. At first, again, the first time reading this, maybe I was like, what is going on here? But then as you get into it, it just gets so good. So anyway, here you have Albert here in the hotel. But the story of Luigi Vampa. So this young shepherd basically is in love with this shepherdess who works in the neighboring field, right? So they kind of grow up together. They grow up being in love, and then he also is like just a very skilled young man as well. Skilled with a sword, skilled with a gun, and he begins to actually learn how to read, how to write, and just becomes a very very wise person, right? But there is a problem. There are actual Roman bandits running around. There's this one called Cucumetto, and he is on the run from the law, right? So I think her name is Teresa. Is that right? Anyway, Luigi Vampa and Teresa, his lady, see this Cucumetto and they hide him, right? And he's able to get away. But Cucumetto sees her and falls in love with her. So he... Oh yeah, there she is. The lovely Teresa. So he sees her, he falls in love with her, and then he comes to steal her away, right? Wait. Oh man, see, there's a story within the story within the story. So they want to amp up Cucumetto, the bandit, before they amp up Vampa. So they actually tell a story within the story about how Cucumetto, basically, one of his crew was in love with a young lady, right? And he didn't want his young lady to fall into the hands of these bandits, so he thought he could like cut a deal with him. But he was treated to the same justice as everybody else, right? So the young lady was actually, given as a sport for the bandits, and this guy didn't like that, so he ended up killing the freaking the lady, right? And then Rita was the lady's name, so that she would not, be dishonored and kind of be handed over to the rest of the bandits. And when the lady's father comes, he's like, I'm sorry, I had to do it so that she wouldn't be dishonored. And the father's like, you have done well, son. It's like this, like what a deep scene within a scene, So good, right? Anyway, let me get ahead of myself here a little bit. Yeah, so anyway, that built up Cucumetto. So now who is on his way running from the law here, as you can see. So they hide him. But again, he decides that he's going to come back and steal Teresa away. Bad choice, Cucumetto. As he's trying to get away, Luigi Vampa, who is a crack shot with his rifle, as you can see, plugs him one, and then basically goes, takes his clothes, takes all of his stuff, and then goes and takes his gang. He walks into the gang headquarters and he's like, I come to ask to be your captain. And that's like the story of how Luigi Vampa became the famous Roman bandit. See, I love that. Look, here you have Signor Pastrini. He's telling the story to him, and they're just kind of leaning back, listening to it. It's fantastic. So anyway, here's the Count of Monte Cristo. and here is Peppino. So we're going to get into that. So staying there in the... Oh, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Before they meet him, they take this interesting trip to the Colosseum, which is what made me want to look at the maps, is what I was talking about earlier. So initially, Franz wants to take Albert on a trip to the Colosseum via the outer wall. And they give the exact road names, go this way to this gate, take this road to this road to this road, come back in through this gate, so that the moon's going to be behind the Colosseum or whatever, and it'll be the first thing you see as you come in. So it won't be, the grandeur won't be taken away by the other sights of Rome, right? So he's got this specific route in mind, you know, which is, I'm thinking that's probably something Dumas knew about, right? It's like, it was his thing. But then the guy's like, Signor Prestrini says, no, you can't do that. We'll go back to the count here. You can't do that. There's Roman bandits. Hence the big story about Roman bandits, right? So they choose another route via this road, the Pia del Popolo, this road and that road. And it was so fun to go on the map and find that exact route and see that they were going to go by this thing and go by this thing and go by that thing. And man, it really made me spend a lot of time in this section just diving into all that different stuff, which was fantastic. So anyway, they go to visit the Colosseum, where at the Colosseum, Franz kind of walks off by himself while Albert gets the dime tour of it. And as he does that, he overhears somebody meeting up with another somebody discussing someone who's going to be getting executed and a possible stay of that execution and what would happen if he did that and what to look for if that happened and that kind of thing. So I love this scene because it makes me think too, is this also set up by the Count? Does the Count know? And every time I think about that, I'm like, man, the Count always knows. He knows everything. So I think that he knew he was going to be there, and this whole scene was played out for Franz's benefit. Or maybe not. Or maybe it was. Oh, it's so fun to think about. Man, okay. Wow, we're like halfway through. We're going to have to speed run the end here because I can't make this be 30-minute long video. I could. I could go forever on this. But, you know, I can't. I only have so much time in the day. All right? Anyway, Countess G. Oh, okay, yeah, so then we get a scene at the Roman Opera where we get to meet Countess G, who is this, like a real-life character, actually, who is someone who is with the Lord Byron, I guess. So she plays some interesting parts throughout this as well. But she's kind of, she'll show up later in Paris as well, too. So now, anyway, let's meet the Count. So when the boys get back to their place, they are kind of put out. They don't have what is necessary for the, for this event, which is having a great carriage, great costumes and horses, so they can ride up and down the streets, as you can see here, and enjoy the festivities of the carnival, right? But then they are introduced to their neighbor, who is the Count of Monte Cristo. And when he finds out these young men are don't have what they need, he is able to help them out and hook them up with everything that they do need. There is the beautiful Countess G, as we were talking about. As you can see, and then also during that scene, you get to see Haiti and the Count of Monte Cristo as they kind of glimpse them up at the opera. And she, for one, thinks he's a vampire. So that's kind of funny. But anyway, let's kind of skip ahead. Oh yeah, and this is when Franz recognizes the Count of Monte Cristo. He sees him, but neither of them mentions their meeting on the island, right? Oh man, there's a lot that... Check this guy out, man. He's not oh man, okay, we'll get back to him. Wow. Okay, so anyway, the Count hooks them up with everything they need. And in addition to that, what he gives them is a seat at his window for the upcoming execution, right? One of the things that Franz overheard the Count talking about was getting this guy's execution stayed. That was this guy we saw way back here, Peppino. Let's see if we can get back to Peppino quickly. He was right before Countess G. Peppino, he is one of Luigi Vampa's guys, and he's not really a bad guy, but he was caught doing some things, and he's been scheduled to be guillotined, I believe, here. So here they are, both being led to the guillotine. The other guy is an actual guy that like killed a priest, and he is scheduled to be killed via Macoletto, which is a terrible form of death. But we won't get too deep into that, but we'll get into it a little bit. But the Count has pulled off his magic and is able to get a stay of the execution for Peppino, which makes the other guy enraged. He is so mad because, and this is the Count talks about this too, it's one of the interesting parts about this chapter, this guy is so mad that he isn't going to die with someone else, that he has to die alone, basically, that you know, instead of being happy that this other guy is saved, he is enraged that this other guy isn't dying, right? Anyway, the Macoletto, and I'm glad that they didn't illustrate it here, because you can see the effect it has on poor Franz and Albert. I think that's Franz in the back, maybe, and then Albert clutching the curtains, and then the Count standing there like a freaking avenging angel, right? That's a really good picture. Again, straight from the page. Very good. But anyway, the form of execution is they bop him on the back of the head, and then they cut open his neck, and then they jump on his stomach. So it all like, no thank you. And as you can see, here's the effect that it has on everybody. And then immediately, right after that's done, boom, the carnival starts. And again, you have this theme of, whoa, down here at the bottom, this witnessing this terrible death, and then a second later, all of that is gone, all of that is taken away, and the whole city is swept up in the carnival, right? And here they are getting on their clowns' costumes, getting ready to travel throughout the carnival here. And, this is perfect. Another great etching here. You can see that they're all kind of done up in these fantastic costumes. People dressed up like green monkeys. People dressed up like a cabbage. A cabbage. I want to see this cabbage costume, right? So anyway, there's we're gonna have to kind of skip ahead here. So anyway, yeah, during the coming and going, Albert, who's been wanting to meet a young lady this whole time and has been unsuccessful, finally catches the eye of a young lady. So they kind of keep passing by, and they're throwing each other flowers and things like that. And then they lift up their masks, and they're making eyes at each other. But it turns out it was just a trick. Here she is. This is her lifting it up. The assignation. Okay, so they pass him a note, and he's like, well, meet me here at this time, and then this guy's going to put out your lamp, and then you got to follow her, and then we'll meet somewhere, and we'll be discreet, So he's like, he's very excited, something good's going to happen. So he meets the lady, he follows. There's also a fantastic race that happens during the carnival, but we're going to skip past that. This is young Peppino. So anyway, they have the big race. Nobody knows where Albert's at now. He's left with that girl. Everybody's hoping he's having a great time, but nobody knows for sure. So they end up going to a big party thrown by some guy in the city that everyone's there. Everyone is there. The Count, Franz, Countess G, everybody is there. But Albert is nowhere to be found. All of a sudden, someone comes in with a note, and Franz has to go back to the hotel, and this young guy, who turns out to be Peppino, gives him a note basically saying, if you don't give the money needed, young Franz will be dead by morning. So he doesn't quite have all the money, so he goes to ask the Count for help, and the Count is, of course, gracious and able to help him. He calls young Peppino up, and Peppino kisses his hand because he knows the Count is the one that saved his butt, right? So now this is the Count kind of showing how awesome he is to Franz and Albert, right? Because he's going to lead Franz directly into the bandit camp so that they can take care of everything. So here they go, a bandit camp at rest. Here you can see Luigi Vampa reading Caesar's commentaries. The rest of the camp is kind of laying about. And in the background, you can see the Franz and the Count. Another wonderful etching. I really love this one a lot. So anyway, they rescue young Albert, who's been sleeping like a lamb. What a brave boy, right? They get him out of there with the... and basically Luigi's like, I didn't know he was your friend. And he, many forgivenesses, Count. Of course, I would have never done this if I had known. And the whole thing just kind of cements how awesome the Count is, and also how awesome Albert is, dude. Such a cool character. Anyway, he talks about Senior Vampa, how could you wake me up? I was having a dream that I was about to finish a wonderful dance with Countess G. And then the Count's like, well, the party's not over yet. We could still get to the party. So they leave the catacombs where he's been captured, and they head off to the party where Albert can finish his dance with Countess G, right? After that, they decide, we got to meet up again in Paris. I need to introduce you to everybody. And he's like, do you want to set a date? Let's set a date. I'm very punctual. Let's take it right down to the hour and the minute. So they set a date for, I believe, September the... Oh, I didn't write it down. But anyway, 3 months to the day at 10:30, the Count is to meet with Albert at his home in Paris. And he agrees. And as they're kind of leaving, Franz is like, Albert, something about this Count, you might want to be mindful of him. He's a little bit strange. Okay. And that is the end of part 4. So, part 4, man, what do you get from part 4? You get so much awesome stuff. You get to meet one of the greatest characters in this book, Albert Morcerf, right? Who already shows himself to be, he's his mother's son. He shows himself to be a fine stock. Just very cool. I love this quote when he's something. Anyway, I'll just read the quote. I say that when something is beyond comprehension, I am in the habit of not wasting any more time on it, but of turning to something else. Is supper ready, Signor Pastrini? I love that and what it kind of speaks to. There's something in this world that just you can't figure it out. Like, what are these people? What? You know what? You don't have to think about it, and I don't, and there's no reason to, and that really stuck with me. That's like just a wonderful life lesson. If there's something in this world that you just can't comprehend, then don't waste your time on it. Again, if there's something you don't like, same thing applies to that too. Don't waste your time on it. Move on and spend your time doing things that you do like reading and talking about the Count of Monte Cristo. Look at the notes I've been taking on this bad boy. This is crazy notes. I haven't taken notes like this in my whole life. I didn't even take notes like this in school. Anyway, I think I'm just excited to be back in this book and be reading it and then be talking about it, and then also be able to show all these wonderful etchings and these things. And I said I was going to make this a 20-minute video for part 4, and we're at like 27 minutes now. But anyway, final thoughts, final themes, big intro for Albert again. Franz knows what's going on. The Count is laying his plans deep, right? And you can see it right from the beginning of this chapter about how much he's kind of inserting himself and using Albert as his kind of wedge to get into everything else, right? So, and again, the big 9-year jump is such a thing. You see last Edmond Dantes changed, but now you get to meet these different characters. Of course, first Sinbad the Sailor, and then finally you get to meet the title character, the Count of Monte Cristo in the flesh, right? So just amazing. An amazing chapter, an amazing segue into the next section of the book, and we'll be back soon to talk about part 5, where the Count goes to Paris and the plot really thickens. So thanks for hanging out and listening. Live long and prosper, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Good night.